everybody, it's BC back with another video from the VR office. Instead of talking about hardware peripherals this week, I want to talk about one of the most important and often controversial elements of the metaverse, and that is avatars. A friend of mine told me a while back about this theory, that the metaverse isn't just about virtual reality or augmented reality or mixed reality and the platforms that will run those technologies, but rather that the metaverse is a point in the future when our digital selves will become more important than our physical selves. I know this sounds like science fiction, but even now, so much of our identity is tied up in the world of the digital. From our social media presence to online gaming personas, even our money has gone fully digital with Venmo and Apple Pay. So it's not that crazy to think about a future when our digital representation will be crucial to our daily lives. And one of the most important elements of our digital selves is our visual appearance inside VR spaces. So we're going to talk about avatars and how the design of these digital selves impacts our experience with the metaverse. We have to talk about the uncanny valley. That's it. I won't go too deep here, but simply put, this chart speaks to realism in design. And here we're focused on avatar design. The more real, the better. But when you get to a certain point, the design becomes so close to real, but not actually real, that our brains reject what we're seeing. And that is the deep drop into the uncanny valley. Think of the early video game avatars, early Pixar movie humans. And don't get me started on the Polar Express and those glossy eyes that we knew weren't real. Our goal with avatar design in VR today is to get as close as we can without going too far. And that means that the avatars often look a bit cartoonish. You'd think cartoons would be rejected by the brain as not real, but funny enough, that often isn't the case. You see, the brain is easy to trick when the avatars are acting in a way that the brain expects. Here are a few of the avatars that I've used over the past several years. This first one is my Oculus avatar, which looks nothing like me, but it didn't matter because when I used this, collaborative VR was not mainstream, and I don't like this avatar. There it is. Here are a few of the other avatars that I've used since that first Oculus design. Some are cartoonish, others more realistic, but none can be called true to life. They don't need to be though, as long as they act in a way that feels real in the moment. I've used these digital personas for years and never changed them. I'll briefly touch on the design choice that scans a picture and creates an avatar head that looks just like me. Companies like Spatial and Arthur use this approach, and I think it's a little hit and miss. I really get it. We want to look like we do in the real world. We don't want to create a cartoon of ourselves to do business with. But this design is very cutting edge, and in most cases still feels very beta. That leads me to the last two avatars, and they are the ones that I use most often for the VR office experiment. Starting with my meta avatar, this one. So for me, the golden rule of avatar design is that you make one and stick with it. When you are in collaborative VR, you are building memories. Shockingly, those memories are stored right alongside your memories in the physical world, not where your screen watching memories are stored. So if you're always changing your avatar, then people are having to remember a lot of different faces. In the VR office at OSO, I ask people to be thoughtful in their avatar design, and when they are satisfied, stick with it. You can change your wardrobe and your hairstyle, but the face should stay the same. I have been beardless and scruffy, and my current full beard, but my face hasn't changed in almost a year and a half since I started using workrooms. Working at a remote company, I know many of my coworkers better by their avatars than their faces in the physical world, viewed through a Zoom camera. So after a full day of working in the VR office, it's nice to hang out in a more relaxed space. So let's head over to the Brooklyn rooftop of Forever Cornhole.
For this next section, I'm going to use still images. Forever Cornhole shows the meta ID above my head by default, and I'm not quite ready to share that with everyone. You can see I hopped into my virtual closet on the way here. Now that I'm not sitting at a desk, it's much more obvious that I don't have legs. It's a huge debate in the metaverse community. Would it be better to have legs? Yes. Do we need them to have experiences in VR that feel very real? No. The truth is, when we interact with other people in the physical world, most of the communication is done with our eyes, head, and hands. When people say we need legs in the physical world, I often start looking at their legs while we're talking and sarcastically say, "You're right, this is better." The technology will catch up. Many companies are doing amazing things with trackers that will allow for more realistic body tracking in VR. But for now, minimalism generally does the trick. To show how this plays out, let's head to my favorite corner of the metaverse to see my other primary avatar.
This is my walkabout mini golf avatar that I have used for a while now. But when the game first launched, we looked a little different. This is the original avatar, except the mouth didn't move. But even then, the brain could be tricked, because we know how this game works, and most of our communication can be delivered with the head and the hand. Since it's the holiday, I currently am using a little different avatar. You can see we've jumped into the original Gothic course, where things are set up for the holiday. But here's my take on this, and it's just one voice in a large crowd. The goal of the design in VR is to have the brain believe the experience is real. If the brain doesn't think it's real, then it asks, is this bad? And if the thinking is yes, the result is VR sickness. And that's where a bucket is sometimes required. There is a belief that in order to have the brain be satisfied with the avatars, they must look exactly like we do in the real world. But in my experience, that has not been the case. Even this avatar, with a floating head and a single hand holding a putter, can feel entirely real to me. So let's go and wrap things up back in the VR office. Before we wrap up, let's talk quickly about face and eye tracking. Since I have a Quest Pro, I can switch this feature on, which I'll do right now. Now my face is much more animated. This is a great step forward in avatar design that isn't focused on face design, but rather on how the face moves. Because what it does is make the face act like we'd expect. The challenge is that since this is a first-gen device from Meta, the tracking can create moments that speak to the uncanny valley. And that is usually why I keep my tracking turned off. I tell my team that I'm turning my emotions off and on when I toggle that switch. So I'm going to toggle it back off before we wrap up. I hope this discussion about avatars has been helpful. This space is full of opinions, and there aren't any rules set in stone. The design is changing rapidly, and companies are investing in building better avatars for the metaverse to come. And I'm excited to see how things evolve. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Till tomorrow.